The Friedel brothers were knocking over a museum, stealing all their old weapons that were on display there, as they were almost hit by Rook in the proto-truck in the process, and they'd had to chase the two of them down with Ben getting a call from his mom. Octagon mocked him for that, and Ben says that at least his mom is actually proud of him shutting them up. He then tells his mom that he would be there for lunch, not to worry. They continued to fight, with Boyd pulling the pin on a grenade and throwing it. He sadly had thrown the pin, not the grenade. Ed had blown himself and Octagon up in the process. Rook says that it seems the Vriedels have destroyed themselves, and Ben says that they'll be back, but right now he needs to swing by his place real quick to pick something up. After swinging by his place to heat something up, he'd prepped for lunch with his mom. Ben then headed on off to his parents' house for lunch with his mom like they'd planned. Going on in, he set the warmed up dish down onto the table with Ben's mother Sandra asking what he'd brought over today, curious about his food choices. He tells her that he brought over a Luxurium squirrel leech seasoned with ground Virexum crickets with a nice Vlugbarian eel paste for topping, pulling the top off of the food, and she'd regretted asking what it was because it smelled delicious, while Sandra tells her son what she'd made to add to the meal. Sandra says that she'd made a steamed tofu and wheat germ, lightly drizzled with an algae puree, putting some of it onto Ben's plate, as he'd put some of what he brought onto his plate as well. She still tried what he brought even though it sounded off even by her standards, and found that it was actually rather tasty. The two sit chatting about stuff, catching up. Sandra asked if they'd picked out a venue yet, and Ben says that they hadn't just yet, but they had narrowed it down to a few now, and they were going to be checking some places out to see if they felt right because Gwen liked to plan things in advance. She told her son that planning in advance for the wedding would be smart, but before they could keep on the conversation, the communications on the Omnitrix began beeping and Ben asked Rook what's going on, as his Ravonagander partner apologizes but says that they have a situation at base that could use his help. Apologizing, Ben says that he has to go and Sandra says she'll wrap up the leftovers for him, but he says there's no time and takes off, with his mom calling out that she'll bring them to him instead. We then cut to Ben running into the base, seeing the place was a wreck, and saw that Ma Vriedel was causing issues. Ma throws a console at Ben as he dodges out of the way and makes his way up to the platform she was on, telling her that all this rampaging won't do any good for anyone, and she should just tell them what she wanted. Ma says that one of her pretty boys has gone missing and she wants the plumbers to find them for her, and Ben raises an eyebrow. He tells her the next time she wants to report a crime, don't come in guns blazing, and wreck the place. Patelade asked if she has a photo of the missing pretty boy. After showing them, she says that if they don't find her pretty boy, she'll take their son as restitution and blow up Earth's star. They tell her not to worry, letting her leave as Patelade had put a tracker on her back and says he'll go after them while they find the missing pretty boy. Nodding, Ben and Rook head out as Sandra had just missed them as they'd gone off to find the missing pretty boy clone and ended up driving around trying to find them. Hearing an explosion, they find the Vriedel brothers and they try to attack Rook with dynamite, as Ben kicks them in the back of the head, causing them to throw it a bit wonky, as it bumped the proto-truck instead of landing beside it. Calling out to his partner, Ben tells him to get the explosive airborne now. Doing so, they go off, and they prepare to keep fighting, but a sign hanging atop the shop behind them falls onto them. In the confusion, Octagon and Rhomboid decide that it's best to get out of there immediately as they run off again. That was confusing, but Patelade says that they found Ma Vriedel as she was on the move with a train. Rook says to copy that as he flies the proto-truck and lets Ben out on top of the train before pulling back. Ben tells Ma Vriedel that it was over and she whistles as a batch of large pretty boys that were all grown up and now big and mean appeared. Hitting the Omnitrix, he changes into blocks and makes another of those blaster-like weapons builds we've seen him use previously, and began blasting at their feet, causing them to slip in the pile of loose bricks and fall off the train. But Ma then blasts the connector piece to get away. Stretching his arms, he reaches out, grabbing the train cart that she was on and pulled himself over to it, telling her that she's going down, but Ma Vriedel says that she's going in before jumping down into the car they were standing on. Seeing the large launch ramp, Ben does the same, going in through a window. More clones attack, but Ben slides past them as they try to attack. He opens up the back door to the train car, causing them to fall out. As Ma launches the warhead, and Ben dives out of the back door, changing into Thunderwing, using his powerful wings to blow it off course, though it was still set to blow somewhere. He struck it with lightning, but it just sorta busted apart, no boom. Ben notices the cap on the roof of the train car, and tells Mauve Riedel that it seems her boys have gone and stolen the warhead. She says that they ain't smart enough to come up with that themselves, and Rook pulls up, pointing his proto-tool at Octagon and Rhomboid Riedel, telling them not to set it off. After hearing what Mauve Riedel had planned, Sandra starts yelling at her, which honestly was kind of funny to watch happen. Ma then disarms the device, saying that she couldn't put another mother through the same pain she's just been through with her pretty boy missing, and hugs at Sandra, saying that it ain't easy being a mother. Sandra says that it's the hardest job in the world, especially when her son is out there risking his life every day, but it's worth it to have one that makes her so proud. Mauve Riedel starts yelling at Octagon and Rhomboid before hugging them, saying that they finally done her proud. Octagon asks why none of the other pretty boys have names, and Ma says that their pa and her only knew 4 shapes between them. And Sandra suggests dodecahedron, with the pretty boy chanting Dodie, as Sandra hands Ben the leftovers from lunch, and he thanks her, saying that he'll heat it up and enjoy it once he gets a break.